Hello, families, and welcome to Indian Prairie School District 204 Parent University. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Dawn Forkner, the District Social Emotional Learning and Wellness Coordinator. Parent University is an opportunity to come together as a community of families and school district staff to learn about and discuss topics to support our students' academic and social emotional success. This Parent University, titled Becoming an Elementary School Parent, will provide parents and caregivers with strategies for navigating this new and exciting time in your child's life. Please note that this presentation is not about procedures, logistics, or academic curriculums at any specific school. Rather, the focus is on social emotional learning skills that will help your child be successful as they enter either kindergarten or the first grade. At the end of the presentation, our panel of IPSD 204 building leaders, classroom teachers, and mental health staff answer questions that were submitted through the registration. If you have a question during the presentation, you may also put it in the chat and we will do our best to answer all the questions during the Q&A time. All right, at this time, I want to take a moment and introduce who is on the screen with us tonight. First, we have Lauren Quinn. She is my co-presenter this evening. She is a kindergarten teacher at Peterson Elementary. We have Sherry Fredericks. She is the principal of McCarty Elementary. We have Luke Radajan. He is a kindergarten teacher at Georgetown Elementary. We have Ariel George. She is a first grade teacher at Young Elementary. We have Megan Rogers. She's a social worker at Graham Elementary. And Lindsay Stepper, who is our student service coordinator, and she can explain a little bit more later what that role means at Brookdale Elementary. All right. So as I mentioned, Lauren and I will be presenting. Welcome to Becoming an Elementary School Parent. First of all, this is such an exciting time, whether this is your oldest child or whether this is your second, third, or this is your baby that's going off to kindergarten or first grade for the first time. This is a new chapter for your family. So it is an exciting time. It can be a little bit of a nerve-wracking time. It's going to be a time of huge growth that you're going to see, huge differences in your child, and you're going to see them go from your young child into this new student, this new elementary aged student. And it's just a very cool transition to get to witness. But of course, with every big change or transition or new chapter, there's always the question of what if I'm not quite ready? Your child may be so excited and packing their backpacks and talking about kindergarten, but sometimes we as the adults, we're not sure how we feel. And it's okay if you have a whole mix of feelings. You might be excited because it's something new. You might be a little bit nervous, especially if this is your first child. You might be a little in between, or you might be a little bit worrisome, but at the same time, you're really happy for your child to be taking this next step. All of these feelings, very normal, very okay. I know that when my oldest daughter started kindergarten, I had all sorts of feelings. I knew she was so excited. She got up that morning, she was dressed, she had her backpack. Unfortunately, it rained that day, so I was very disappointed I couldn't get the traditional picture out on the front porch with the sign, but we were still able to do that. And I was feeling all of my feelings, but at the same time, she was like, Mom, I've got this, I'm ready. And I was that parent, however, that decided to put her on the bus and then get in my car and follow her all the way to the elementary school just to see her get off the bus. So all the feelings you have are perfectly normal, and know that most of the parents on this call or the parents that you're going to meet in the fall are going to be feeling the same way. If you want, in the chat, if you could just drop, how are you feeling about your child starting either kindergarten or the first grade? 1 or 2 words, and we'll share out a little bit. See, anxious, nervous, excited and nervous. Excited but nervous. Yep. It's bittersweet. I think I shared that sentiment too when my oldest started school as well as my youngest, because this was just a new time in their life. So that meant that preschool, those toddler years were kind of coming to a close. Excited and nervous, nervous and excited, excited. I love all these positive words. Excited, nervous, excited, disbelief that you're here. Yes, I absolutely share that feeling as well. Nervous and a little shy, excited and nervous. Nervous because your child's had the same teacher for the same 2 years. Yep. Anxious, excited. So hopefully seeing some of these feelings, can we start tomorrow? I love that. Your child's clearly ready to go. But I love that we're sharing these feelings and seeing that so many other parents and caregivers are in the exact same place as you, right? We're a little anxious, we're a little nervous, we're a little excited. Some of us are ready to pack the backpack and send them tomorrow if you could. But all these are totally normal, totally reasonable feelings to be having. But the tough thing is, what if they do struggle? Some of our students are going to feel some of those same feelings we have. They might be anxious, they might be worried, they might be nervous, and it could be about a whole bunch of different reasons. Maybe this is the first time they've really ever been away from you for a long period of time. Maybe they've gone to the same childcare up until this point and this is new. Maybe they're worried about things like riding a school bus for the first time or eating a meal without you or another parent there. So they might be feeling all sorts of different feelings. And just like our feelings are okay, their feelings are okay too. So, first and foremost, make sure that you talk to them about their feelings, right? Validate that. It is okay to feel nervous, right? I see that you're feeling anxious. But then we always want to say, put the but in there though, right? But, and then think of something positive. Manage your own emotions. If you are feeling very anxious and very nervous about this, we know that our feelings transfer to our children. So if we are having the strong feelings, we want to make sure that maybe we're talking to a spouse or a friend or our own mom or dad, and making sure that they're our sounding board and that our kids see that yes, it's okay to be a little bit nervous, but we're also excited and this is going to be a positive thing. This is going to be a great change for us. Make sure we're preparing for the transition, right? We don't want to suddenly in August be like, hey, remember we're going to kindergarten? We want to be talking about it. We want to be doing all the things over the summer, like visiting the school playground, taking walks by the school, maybe setting up some play dates with neighbors that you know are going to the school, practice packing that backpack, maybe do lunch with them one day with their lunch sacks. So make sure that you're preparing for that transition. And finally, be patient and reassuring because there could be days that they're so excited and they're so ready to go, but there could also be days where they're going to want to stay close to you and suddenly be feeling some of those nervous or worried feelings. So, one thing we do in all of our schools, regardless of which building in the district you are, is we talk a lot about SEL. And you may have heard this before. SEL stands for social emotional learning. And it is something that we embed all through our school day, through our routines, through our practices, through the way that we teach kids to speak to one another. But it's also explicitly taught through a curriculum called Second Step. And in SEL, we really have five main areas: self management, self awareness, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and our social awareness. And really, so much of kindergarten is beginning to learn these skills, right? There's definitely an academic part of kindergarten, but SEL is what the teachers do all day, every day with your child. The other thing that you might see, and it is a little bit more unique to School District 204, is we have something called the Portrait of a Graduate. And what it is several years back, a committee of people got together and they talked about when a student leaves School District 204. So they come in pre-K or in kindergarten or wherever in the journey that they join us. And when they graduate as seniors, what are the skills that we want them to have? What are the values that we want them to have? And we came up with this image, this portrait of a graduate, with things like we want them to be flexible and adaptable. We want them to be resilient. We want them to think about the power of yet. We want them to be good communicators. We want them to be creative and innovative. We want them to be good citizens, and we want them to have critical thinking and problem solving skills. And what you'll notice is so much of what's in this portrait of graduate, so much of what we want our students to have at the end of their senior year relates back to those SEL skills that I showed you on the previous slide. So some people may be wondering, why is SEL so important? Right? We know that math is important, we know reading is important, we know writing is important, but Why is SEL so critical, especially in kindergarten and first grade? Well, according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers in their job look in 2024, employers rank the top attributes they seek in candidates' resumes to include problem solving skills, their ability to work as a team, and strong written communication skills. So, two of the three are those SEL skills that we start all the way back in kindergarten. All right, at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Lauren Quinn. She is a kindergarten teacher at Peterson Elementary, and she is somebody that all day, every day is working with our kindergarten students and can share very practical skills and tips, strategies to get your child ready for kindergarten. So, Lauren, I'm going to hand it to you.
All right, thanks, Dawn. Um, so yeah, I'm Lauren Quinn, kindergarten teacher. Kindergarten is just such a special time. I used to teach at middle school for a long time, loved it there too, but worked my way down all the way to kindergarten. It's my place, it's my jam. You are going to love this year for your child. And even if they're going into first grade, they're great too. So I wanted to thank you all for being here because this is the first step in partnering with school staff is for you guys to be here and support your child. We want to work with you. You guys know your child best. So we thank you for being here today. Okay, so since we are virtual, you guys lucked out and you don't have to do the movements that I did with our in-person group. But I did just point out that in kindergarten, we do move a lot during the day. It's developmentally appropriate. We do lots of transitions and make sure that they are moving all day long. So I was illustrating that at our in-person. But just go ahead and think to yourself if you think that the following is a myth or a fact. And Jeannie, if you'll just click once, thank you. So teachers don't want parents to email them. They're too busy. Think to yourself if that's a myth or a fact. And then go ahead, Jeannie, just once. That is, in fact, a myth. So like I said, we consider caregivers, parents, partners in the education for your child. So please always feel free to reach out to us, phone, email. Of course, we teach all day long, so please don't expect an email back right that second. But we do want your partnership. It is very, very important to us. You know your child best. All right, here's the second one. Myth or fact, kindergartners take naps. And that is, oh, thank you for putting that in the chat. Perfect. That is correct. That is a myth. So yes, it is, as you will figure out, a very long day at first for your child. Although sometimes the kindergarten teachers need naps, we don't take naps. But we do know as we start the year, we know that they're going to take some time to build up that stamina for the day. So we might have more playtime, a lot more transitions, small chunks of time, and work our way up. I will say that at dismissal, I've seen, like, as kids are waiting to go home, I've actually seen some kids fall asleep at school. So it is a long day, and they get used to it though. So please know it might seem like a lot at the beginning, but they do get used to it. Oh, and there's our little illustration of the first day of school or the beginning of the school day and the end of the school day. Here's the next one. Myth or fact, your child may come home with a half-eaten lunch at the beginning of the school year. If you want to put that in the chat, that's perfect. Okay, Jeannie, go for it. That is a fact. This is actually one of the concerns kindergarten teachers get often at the beginning of the school year. They might email or call and say, "Oh, my child is coming home with a full lunchbox or a half-eaten lunchbox." Another part of the transition that they will get used to. This is their first chance to, socialize with new friends. So a lot of the time they're just talking, enjoying themselves. Also, part of that is they only get 20 minutes to eat lunch. So that, they're not used to being on a time crunch, maybe if they hadn't been in, daycare and preschool. So practicing that would be a tip. Here's another one. Playtime is just for fun. Myth or fact? Okay, and it is, in fact, a myth. Playtime is crucial, especially at this developmental stage of their life. Playtime is what kids need to be problem solvers, show creativity, that relationship building piece. It's amazing sometimes. Towards the end of the year here, we don't get a ton of playtime, but when I sit back and watch, them play, it's really, really great to see, how they handle problems. They come over and show me, like somebody just handed me like cake made out of kinetic sand today. So it's just really great to see all the creativity that comes with that play. And lastly, it is expected to see some different behaviors early on. Myth or fact? Yes, it is. It is in fact a fact. So you will see some moods, probably most likely, when your child comes home those first few days or even weeks. That is all part of the transition. All kids, of course, are going to react differently. They might not see any change, but more than likely you will. And please just kind of give your child grace and be patient as they're working through the transition. And families, moms, dads, caregivers, you all will be working through the transition with them. So just lots of grace and patience. Okay. Another tip of ours is just to make sure you're establishing routines at home. School is all about routines. So kids and adults thrive on knowing what to expect. Um, I remember, like, even as a kid, like, if I was going to the doctor or dentist, like that was, really scary for me. But once I started going repeatedly and knowing what to expect, I felt more at ease. So, same with school. When your kid is going through that same routine, they know what to expect. They feel more, it reduces the anxiety by creating the structure and promoting independence. So they feel like they can do it by themselves. And so this is actually a matrix that you could use at home. I know the slides are a little bit tough to see, but there's the QR code there if you want to look at it closer. All schools actually have a matrix for behaviors in our schools and expectations. So we teach the students what it looks like to be safe, be kind, and our schools be accountable. This one's be ready, pretty much the same. But what does that look like in the classroom? What does that look like in the lunchroom, in the hallway, when you're waiting to be dismissed? And so we explicitly teach all the expectations. And at school, behaviors are taught this the same in the same light that math or reading is taught. So if your child doesn't understand the expectation, we reteach it and we reteach it and we reteach it and reteach it again. So and if they don't get it, we'll do something a little different, just the same way we would with a reading skill or a math skill. So we really would love for you all to be working on routines at home. What does it look like when we get ready for bedtime? How can you be safe when it's time to go to bed? Cleaning up your toys, and having the lights out according to our little matrix here. So you could, in fact, make a little matrix at home. I've also seen, if you want to create some independence with your child, I've seen like file folders of like jobs they do. So brush teeth, um, put your pajamas on, and read a book. And so then they can, close the little Velcro, close up each one as they complete them. So just another tip to work on those routines at home. Okay, so also at home, we would love for you all to be working on encouraging independence as much as possible. Um, so teachers are always, always willing to help. That's why we became teachers. We love to help. But please imagine that there's sometimes 20 plus students and only one teacher in the classroom. So if all students are requiring, help with their zipper at the same time, that gets to be a little tricky. So we kind of work under the model of you can try it first, or you try, ask a friend, then ask the teacher. So keep encouraging them to try on their own. Let's see. So self-help skills would be great to work on at home. Bathroom hand washing. Sometimes for some kids, this is the first time they've been in a public restroom and having to, lock the stall, or sometimes kids even struggle with getting the soap and how to do that. So just explore that with your child. Hand washing, explicitly teaching that 20 seconds to make sure your hands are clean. Helping them with dressing in that cold weather, especially coats, hats, gloves, zippers. Let's see, shoes. Shoe tying is a great thing if you can do that at home. Snacks and lunches, have some trial runs. If you plan on packing a lunch in those like bento boxes, or with containers that snap and open, have them practice opening them. Maybe take them for a picnic and give them 20 minutes and see how much they can eat. Practice with direction following, so we can work on just one step directions, two step directions. Go get your coat and put on your shoes, and see if they can work their way up even to 3-step directions. And then it's really important to talk with your child about how to ask for help if they need it. So I know my own daughter is a little bit shy. So if she was struggling with something, her teacher would tell me, well, she's not quite raising her hand and saying, I need help on this. She's just kind of waiting for me to come over. So that's a skill we can really work on with our kids, is advocating for yourself. We actually have the second step curriculum that Dawn was referring to. There's actually a lesson called Being Assertive, and how to ask for help when you need it. So we do talk about that in school, but something you can support at home. Perfect. So again, that playtime is so important. Please keep that going at home, that gameplay, imaginative play, creative play. Not so much screen time, please, because this social interactive play is what we need. Model that sharing, turn taking, maybe even run through scenarios with your child of what would happen if someone took this out of your hands, or what would you say if someone did this to you. And so just kind of some scenarios about problem solving. Again, those are very explicit lessons that we teach in our curriculum, but some tips to think about at home. Consider some play dates, community activities. Park district is great, just to get that social interaction. Okay, developing that emotional intelligence. So Dawn referred a little bit to this as labeling emotion. So encourage your child to say, I feel mad. And if you see that you're mad, give them that language. I see that you're mad. It's okay to be mad. Please validate that the feelings are okay. But we do want to set the boundaries. It's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to throw things, or it's not okay to hit. if you are mad, and then we need to give them some calming tools. This is a picture of the calming corner in my classroom, and various other classrooms have them around our district. I think many do, thanks to some work that Dawn and some others in our district have been doing. But it's just a place where they can just take a breath. They can use some tools that I have there. Like there's like a breathing ball, or like a stress relief squishy, some coloring markers, even a stuffy. And if they're feeling mad, we say, do you want to go to the calming corner? And they just set a timer for 3 minutes. And usually at that time, they can just rejoin the group, and we can have the conversation when they're ready. But model that emotional regulation. If you feel frustrated with your child, just say, I feel frustrated. I need to take a break right now and take some breaths. I'm going to be a minute. So just model that for them. And then, of course, we want to promote empathy. At 4, 5, 6 years old, this is a very egocentric age where a lot of kids are, developmentally appropriate just about themselves, but we want them to start noticing others. What does his face look like? Like, is his mouth turned down, or are his eyes looking down? And we teach that with our social emotional curriculum, but we want to really work on promoting empathy. And we also want to foster a growth mindset. So basically, we all as parents, even myself, this is really hard. We want to naturally jump in and protect our kids. We don't want to see them get hurt. We don't want to see them fail. But if we do that, they don't learn that way. So we need to make sure that we're within reason, of course, allowing them to take those risks, and building that resilience for them. We want to make sure we're creating an environment where they feel safe taking risks. And we do that in the classroom all day long. We, say mistakes are a good thing. They help your brain grow. We learn from our mistakes, and we let them know that it's absolutely okay for them to make a mistake. We teach the word yet. So you can't ride your bike yet, or you don't know all of your letters yet. So giving them the language to say that maybe I don't know it yet, but I will. I'm going to work on this. We want to praise their effort and progress over talent. So instead of just saying you're so smart, we really want to focus on what they did to get there. So you've really worked hard, or you've overcome a lot of challenges to get here. And yeah, help them embrace those challenges. We really want them to dive in and take some risks. So finally, academics will come. I know we think kindergarten, and we think, reading and writing and math, and it will come. Kindergarten is crazy amazing because they come in maybe not knowing letters or numbers, and they go out reading, writing, and doing number sentences. So it will come. We're going to meet your child wherever they are. So we don't expect them to come in knowing certain things, but here's some things you could do. Read to your child daily. I did do a reading specialist thing when I was in middle school, and the one thing that I learned throughout my master's program is reading to your child daily has such an impact on your child. That modeling can go such a far way. Practice name recognition. So a lot of the teachers will have your child's name displayed around the classroom when they first see their classroom. So if you want to teach your child how to recognize your name, that would be important. Those fine motor skills. So cutting, holding a pencil, that would be a good place to start if they don't know that yet. And as I said, your child is going to blow you away this year. Looking at, just what the kindergartners are doing right now, it is so amazing to watch. So we can't wait to meet your child.
All right, so at this time, we are going to move into our questions and answers. The questions I have were submitted through the registration. However, if while listening to Lauren or myself, or just seeing what other parents were saying, you have a question that you'd like to ask, just go ahead and put in the chat. And like I said, we will try to get you as many questions as possible. On our panel tonight, Lauren is also will stay on the panel. We have Sherry Fredericks. She is the principal at McCarty. We have Luke Radajan. He is a kindergarten teacher at Georgetown. We have Ariel George. She is a first grade teacher at Young. Megan Rogers, who is a social worker at Gombert, and Lindsay Sepper, who is the student service coordinator at Brookdale. And I've advised them just to jump in at any time when they want to share about a particular question. So one question that was asked was, my child did not attend a formal preschool program. Will he or she feel left behind their classmates? Anyone wants to
I,
jump in on that?
I can start with that one. So one of the great things about kindergarten is we make sure that we start at the beginning for every single student. So we don't have any assumed knowledge of your child when they come in. We say, you know what, we're just going to make sure that every single student gets introduced to every single letter. So in the first month or so of kindergarten, we spend a lot of time learning about the letters. We'll have letter recognition. We'll have letter formation, and then making sure that they know what those letter sounds are. So we have all these important builder steps before we jump onto that next step of let's put these together and let's start building some words. So even if your child has had some different experiences so far, they are going to be all in the same boat at the beginning of the school year with us.
Great, thank you, Luke.
And I
Anybody else
think
want to chime in?
just to add on for social emotional wise, just like Lauren was saying, being able to practice at home, playing games, turn taking, cleaning up after activities, following your simple directions, reading daily will all be beneficial.
Great, thank you. All right. So another question was asked was, how many students are typically in a kindergarten and first grade classroom, and how are those classrooms set up? Luke, how many students are currently in your kindergarten classroom?
This year we have 18 students each, but it changes every single year. So sometimes we might have as much as 25. Sometimes we might have down to 16. It really just depends on that school year, what it looks like. But like has been said before, throughout the district, it's going to look different from class to class, from building to building.
And Ariel, you teach first grade. How many students are in your classroom this year?
So this year I had 22 kiddos in my class this year, but kind of like echoing Luke, last year I had 25 kids in my class. It just depends on year to year with enrollment, but we try to make it equitable across the board for every student.
Thank you. What is our attendance policy? And when should you notify the school about leaving early or coming late, or if you have something like a doctor's appointment or a vacation?
So I would say if someone is going on vacation or leaving the school for an extended period of time, just make sure you contact the front office at your school. And then also, I always say it's important to just contact the teacher as well, just so they know, so they can get the student prepared to leave or say their goodbyes or whatever it is. Just making sure you have that communication with the office and with your child's teacher.
Oftentimes, too, parents might try to send an email to the teacher. Really, we don't have the opportunity to check our emails all throughout the day. So if you send, like, if your child's dismissal is going to change that day, instead of emailing the child's teacher at 2 o'clock, please make sure that you're calling the office, because then the office will be able to ring down to us and let us know, hey, so-and-so is going to be going home a different way today.
Great. And of course, we always stress that attendance is important. We want to make sure that we're not thinking that because it's kindergarten, like it's less important than if they were in an older grade, because every day they're learning something new, whether it's academic or social emotional skills. So we want to make sure as often as possible that your child is coming to school. And if they're having a tough morning, Ariel and Luke, what do you recommend?
So I always say to parents, just send me a little email. I always put in the beginning of the year, like kind of like a handle with care card, just to say, like, if the kid is having a rough day, that's why we do have calm down centers, where the kid can take a little break for 5 minutes to kind of reset. And usually when the parent communicates that, I always like try to check in and say, okay. So yeah, usually when that happens, just again checking in with the child and then letting the parents know throughout the day how that child is doing. Typically within like 5 minutes or so, once the kid resets, they end up having a good time throughout the day because they see their friends and they're happy to be at school.
Yes. And Megan, do you have any ideas or strategies if a student is saying that they have a tummy ache, or we're seeing some of those symptoms where they're saying that they're sick, but they may not actually be sick, but rather it's more nervous feelings?
Yeah, I think that is normal and it may happen. I would recommend still sending them to school and encouraging them and pushing through that resiliency too, and then praising them when they get home. We really want your student at school. It's very good to be consistent, and even just giving a tip beforehand that I wish I included in my last one. If you are nervous with your child having some anxiety, bringing them to the school beforehand, showing them that routine could also be beneficial. But letting the classroom teacher know that they're having a hard morning, feeling anxious about coming to school, and then you can always connect with the school social worker as well.
Perfect. And sort of bridging off of what Megan asked, somebody did ask a question. If your child receives, say, services in preschool, would there be opportunities to meet with those providers prior to the start of the school year? And I'm thinking not just students that receive services, but what sorts of opportunities are there for students to visit the building prior to the first day of school?
So I'm not sure. I'm sure it's building to building, but I know my building, we have a kindergarten read aloud that happens in May. So I recommend looking at your building in specific to see what they do, if they offer any events. And then for all students in general, but especially related services, we have a meet and greet at the beginning of the school year, and we'd love to meet your students. So please come by for any of the opportunities available at the building.
And going back in, it's just funny that we talked about this question because my school just had their kindergarten roundup yesterday, and it was such a great event where parents and students, they were able to register their students for kindergarten, and then they were also able to meet all the kindergarten teachers and look at the classrooms, take a tour of the school, meet the principal. So those opportunities are so important. And then kind of also like what Megan said, in the fall, usually we'll have like a meet the teacher where you get to meet us and maybe drop off some of your supplies, see the classroom, things like that. But again, it does differ from building to building. So just keep checking with your school.
And if your school's dates for kindergarten roundup or orientation have already passed, you can always, like Lauren was saying earlier, go to the school this summer and just look at the playground, practice walking to
Mhm.
school, just things that are going to make your child a lot more comfortable. The other nice thing is if they are stressed out and have a lot of questions that you can't answer, there's likely a couple of neighbors that go to that same school, close to you. So you could always go to them as the
Mhm.
experts and say, hey, my child has some questions. Could you, as the, second grader, could you answer some of these for us? And I think just talking to somebody who's been through it really alleviates some of those fears for these, for kids.
Mhm. Thank you. So another question that was asked is, how are Chromebooks and other devices used in the classroom, and what is done to keep our kids safe when they are using technology?
So we are one-to-one in District 204. So that means all your students will have a Chromebook. For kindergarten and first grade, they will keep them most likely at or in the classroom. So they won't be taking them home. Whenever we are on the computers, we make sure that it's very purposeful learning. So first of all, just to get your child onto the computer, they have a QR code. And that way they don't have to type in their username and password and worry about uppercase and lowercase letters or things like that. But then there is a single sign-on. So our single sign-on has all of the apps that we could possibly use throughout the day on this one page. So the students can click that and they're automatically signed in. So they're not going to have to look for different websites or things like that. They're going to just click on those buttons and be able to go to where they need to go. Like I said, we are very purposeful with what we are doing. So we do have some apps like Lexia or Dreambox or Zern. Those are all things that'll help us with ELA, so English Language Arts, or math. We also have some great resources like Pebble Go, which is kind of like a safe encyclopedia where students can look up different biographies and things about science and health and things like that. Also, we make sure that we have, so if we're ever, like if I'm testing and I have some students on the computer, we do have the option to be on this app called Securely. So with Securely, we can see at a glance what every single student is working on. And if they're on off task or on a website that we were not working on at that moment, we can shut that down from our computer, or we can flag it and go up and address it with the student.
So I saw a question come in the chat, and I know it's something that everyone is thinking about a little bit. I know as a first-time kindergarten parent, the bus was something I was very worried about just because my child had never ridden a bus before or really ridden anything other than my car seat in my own car. So how are the kindergartners handled if they have to ride the bus? So what are the arrival bus procedures at most buildings, and what are the dismissal bus procedures? Somebody says you're terrified. Like I said, my child's first day, I literally followed the bus in my car all the way to the school. So I shared that feeling. But somebody want to jump in and talk about buses a little bit?
Sure.
I
So
can.
every single morning.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. Nope, you're
No,
good.
I just figured out how to get unmuted, so I was sticking over here. We definitely have all hands on deck at the beginning of the year in terms of like getting the kids where they need to be, especially our youngest ones, right? Because we know that this is all new for them. So if your kiddo's a bus rider, chances are they might come home with like a tag on their backpack that says what bus they're on or something of the sort. Please don't cut that off. That's for us to, because we want all the things to be able to see how where our kids are supposed to go. So every school probably handles it a little bit differently, just because of how many buses each school has. It depends on where a school is located and kind of what who can walk around that. But we definitely all have our procedures. It is priority number one to make sure everybody gets home safely. Right at the beginning of the year. I know at Brookdale, the kindergartners have to sit at the very front of the bus. Those first couple seats are reserved for them. And also, I believe at all schools or on all buses, a parent or a guardian has to be there to get kids off of the bus. So if they don't see you, they're not going to let that child off of the bus. So I think, we talk to our kids. Something you can do now is start to talk about like, how do you sit on the bus? Like, how are you safe? You're not going to have a seatbelt. That's really strange because you've always had a seatbelt. So, we're sitting on our bottoms and we're facing forward. And who's there to help? The bus driver can help, starting to have those conversations now. A lot of our kids are really excited to get on the bus, but we do understand that it is concerning, and we all have procedures in place to make sure that kids stay safe.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. Another question that I saw from the chat is somebody was asking about outdoor time for the students. We know that we have our recess, but are there other opportunities for the kids to go outside, outdoor lessons, walks, other play times? Somebody want to jump in and talk about outdoor opportunities?
So, Ariel, you're good.
Sorry. No. So like Dawn said, we do have a recess time that is attached to lunch. That is 15 minutes. And then also we have another extra recess. And that is another 15 minutes. So they are required to at least get 30 minutes of recess or unstructured time a day. And it's funny because now the weather is getting nicer. So, of course, I love to maximize the time outside. So yeah, of course we can, at our school, we have a reading garden. So sometimes I might do a lesson in the reading garden as the weather gets nicer. But for sure, we try to maximize the time outside when the weather allows.
All right. Another question that was asked through the registration is, what inclusion opportunities are there for students with differing abilities? And I think we're speaking not only students with, we're also including students but that are English language learners in that. So how are all students included in our classrooms?
So speaking from a social inclusion, our building utilizes peer buddies and peer mentors. So connecting them with a peer buddy, um, we can have lunch groups or social skills groups. We have structured opportunities. I know that recess is that unstructured time, but the classroom teachers and other staff members are really utilizing that active supervision and identifying ways that we can help support. And then just speaking a little bit to academics, we have small group instruction within the classroom. We have visual schedules. We help modify for students. We're really meeting them where they are at.
And can
I think
anyone
too,
speak
one
to
of the
the
best things about, sorry, I keep getting stuck in mute, but one of the best things about kindergartners is they include each other. They just, at that age, they're just really wanting to be friends. I mean, right? I'm sure you've like had this where you're like, okay, that's a stranger. Like, we're not going to talk to that person right now. But in kindergarten, they just are excited to be there. Everybody's their friend. And they really do a beautiful job of just like accepting the kids and their friends for like exactly who they are, and just being excited to be around each other. So it's it's one of my favorite parts about the kindergartners is just they're just so excited, and they just want to love everybody.
And when it comes to multi-language learners, so anybody who speaks another language at home, a lot of the best practices for multi-language learners are practices that we're doing in our classrooms anyway. So sentence starters or sentence frames, using a lot of pictures and real objects to really connect. What does the word apple mean? It can mean a couple different things. Here's a couple of different apples, to show them, yeah, apples can be green, they can be red. So a lot of the things that we're doing for all of our students are just best practice for our multi-language learners as well.
And somebody had asked a specific question, and I'm not certain if we'll have this answer or if we'll have to ask somebody who works in our multi-language department. But somebody asked when the school or the district contacts a parent to administer the WIDA test to those students who are ELL. So when would parents get notified of that test? Does anyone have any experience with that?
So I believe you're going to have a home language survey that you sign or that you fill out when you register your child. So if you say that they do speak another language, then right away they will be screened. I believe they will be screened at the beginning of the school year just to see what their WIDA score would be. So I know for kindergarten, there's 4 domains total. I believe for kindergarten, it's just listening and speaking that they will be tested on. So the reading and the writing, those are pieces that they will be tested on later, but not in kindergarten. And so I believe by the beginning of the school year, somebody should reach out to you if your student is going to be in the multi-language program.
And I will jump in. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. My camera still will not come on. Sorry. But I can speak now. To piggyback off of Luke, once your children are registered, so I would encourage you to get registered as soon as possible, because once they're registered, then you would start to receive some information about those screenings.
All right, thank you. Another question from the chat is, do schools still do breakout groups for different learning levels for students? So do we group students by ability and then do small lessons or that sort of thing?
I can talk about that now that my system's working. So I think yes, the answer is yes, and it varies, right? So during the win time, which is what I need time, kids would be maybe grouped if somebody needs a lesson to reteach a part of the lesson, or maybe the student has mastered that, so they're going to do some enrichment. So there's all kinds of different grouping opportunities based, it really varies throughout the day, throughout the lesson. I know the classroom teachers could probably even piggyback off of that, but I think the basic answer is yes. Kids are grouped different ways, for all different types of activities and lessons.
And these groups are very fluid. So it's not like, oh, my child was flagged for needing help with their letter sounds or something like that. They're going to be stuck there forever. We are constantly collecting data. So we do have data review often. And during those data review meetings, we say, okay, here's what students were in a support group before. And now here are the, what benchmarks they're meeting or what progress monitor points that they were seeing. And so based off of what they're learning, we can say, okay, they're no longer needing this group. We can change the amount of support, or the group of support, I should say, and make sure that the next step is what we're going to be focusing on for them.
Thank you. And Ariel, we had a parent ask specifically about first grade and how students are assessed for levels. Could you speak a little bit to first grade?
So yeah, I'm assuming like reading and math levels, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe they could put that in the chat.
Yes.
I just want to make
Yes,
sure.
I think they're referring to academic levels
Okay.
in first grade.
Yeah. So for reading, we do an assessment at the beginning of the year. So basically, in the beginning of the year, the first 6 weeks of school, we're always assessing, kind of like what Luke said. We're kind of collecting that data to get to know the students academically of what they need and what they still need to learn. And so for like reading levels, for example, like we're assessing every student to see kind of where they are as far as reading levels. And then what is so important, I know we said this a lot in the conversation, is we're meeting the kids where they're at. So wherever they are, that is what we're doing. We're meeting them as a small group to kind of get to where they're at. So if they're on grade level, if they're, right at the first grade level, we're, doing things with the curriculum, or maybe are enhancing them so they can grow academically. If they are needing enrichment services, like, they're a little bit above the grade level and they want to get more of a challenge, we're kind of meeting them where they're at, maybe doing some second grade kind of material. And if they're having struggles, again, we're meeting them where they're at as far as like making sure they're catching up, and we're doing like fun activities and games and trying to, get them caught up. But overall, we definitely take that data in the first 6 weeks just to see where they are academically. And then we're kind of designing our lessons to help the student academically in the classroom and be successful overall.
Perfect. Thank you, Ariel. Lindsay, there's a question that's specific to Brookdale. Somebody was asking if Brookdale has already had their kindergarten roundup, or what sort of kindergarten activities Brookdale specifically has. If you wouldn't mind speaking to that.
Sure. So we have not had kindergarten roundup. We will do something kind of towards the end of summer where I forget what it's called, like a kindergarten sneak peek or something of the sorts, where we will invite parents and kids in. And then the parents come to a presentation that's Brookdale specific. And then we take the kindergartners just for like a quick 20 minutes. They read a story, they color a page, super cute. And then we bring them back. So that's kind of our version of kindergarten roundup. And every school does it differently. So I think checking on your school's website, obviously I know Brookdale's because I'll be there, but just to see what they're doing. And then if you have a question, you're like, that's not sounding like what I heard about, then you could definitely give your school a call. The school secretaries are the ones who answer the phones. They know everything, and they'll be able to kind of help you out. So everybody does. Yes, I think that's sneak peek. I think that's what we call ours. But every school has different things. They just, we design what works best for us. So although we have 21 elementary schools in our district, we're a big district, and every school's community just has kind of different needs. So we try to make, we do a lot of things very similarly, but we also do some things that are just specific to us and what our communities need. So definitely check into your child's school's website and give them a call if you have questions. We are happy to help, and we know this is a big change. And yes, we do have popsicles on the playground coming up at Brookdale next week. So check that out if you're at Brookdale.
And we have another question in the chat. And Sherry, I'm going to direct this one to you. How do I know when my registration has been accepted or is complete so that I can log into the Parent View app and set up the push coin? Do you know anything about how we know registration
I
has been
do.
accepted?
So after the registration has been accepted, you'll just check back on Parent View and it'll say accepted. Once the registration is accepted, the student will be assigned an ID number for the district because you need that ID number to do push coin. So once that goes through and it's accepted and you know, 3 proofs of residency, there's a lot of steps with kindergarten for registration. But once you get that all in and it's accepted, then you can proceed with the push coin. But I will point out that you don't have to have the physical, the dental, all of that. You don't have to have that for registration. You can do that at a later time. There are deadlines, like state mandated deadlines for those, but do what you need to do to get them registered first, and then you can work on the other stuff.
Yes, and registration just opened, I think, a week ago. So if you have not done it, do not worry, you are not behind at all. It's really only been open for about a week. But if you go on the district website, it is the first thing that pops up. There's actually a screen that'll pop up that tell you to register. We have one last question. It says, how can I help or volunteer at school? So how can parents or caregivers get involved? You want to jump in, maybe talk a little bit about PTA?
I can start that one off. The first thing, a couple things that came to mind for me to get involved and stay involved is to read your school newsletter. I know all the schools do a fabulous job of putting out a newsletter to parents. We do try to combine all the information in one place. Mine goes out every Friday at 3:00. And just by reading that will provide opportunities for volunteering in classrooms. Field days coming up, we need volunteers for that. But I feel like that's like a great place to start to learn, to find out ways to, get involved in school. Also, part of the newsletter is the PTA events. Our PTAs are all run by our families. So joining the PTA and getting involved in the PTA, it all benefits your students. So those are 2 things that come to mind right off the bat. And I'm sure the rest of the panel has other ideas as well.
Yeah, you can always reach out to your child's teacher to see if they have, room parents. Sometimes they're going to have holiday parties or, celebrations that they can come and be a part of. And I know a lot of teachers, especially in kindergarten and first grade, also have mystery readers. So you can sign up to be a mystery reader and come into your child's classroom and surprise them as the reader of the day.
I know I said that was gonna be our last question, but we have one more question, and I know that I was always nervous about the forms that I had to submit, so I want to make sure we answer this. Somebody asked for the health forms, do they have to be submitted online, or can we drop off a hard copy? Let me know about
Sorry, I was typing an answer to that. We would prefer that they get uploaded into Parent View, but sometimes people get stuck or they're having a hard time with that. So you can certainly bring them to school, and school will help you with that. But yeah, we would prefer that they get uploaded. And also keep in mind that our district, we have a lot of construction during the summer months. So I know McCarty last year was closed all summer. I mean, we were closed until the 2nd week of August. Teachers weren't there. Nobody, besides obviously the construction workers, but a lot of that's going on in our district again this summer. So just be mindful that your buildings you might not have access to them during the summer.
All right. So at this time, we're going to start wrapping up. Thank you so much to Lauren for presenting and our panelists. I really do encourage you, if you have specific questions about your schools, about kindergarten roundup, about classrooms, reach out to your child's elementary building. We have wonderful staff in all of our buildings who would be happy to help you and help your child get ready for this exciting transition. So do not hesitate to reach out to those schools if you do have questions, or if your child just wants to see the playground over the summer, that's okay too. All right, so have a wonderful night, and thank you so much for attending.